The Battle of Blair Mountain, Rednecks and Sausage Gravy. To-do list for today. Wake up, get dressed, eat breakfast, go to Mingo and free buddies in jail. I'm sure nowhere on that list did getting into a pitched battle with hired coal company thugs ever appear. But in late August 1921, thousands of miners would do just that. It was a lopsided battle by any imagination. Miners with hunting rifles against professional gunmen with up-to-date modern military-grade weapons, and even a crude Air Force to boot. How did all this happen, you might ask? For a long time prior, the coal mining companies, in this case West Virginia, had a virtual monopoly on the lives of its employees. The average coal miner worked up to 14 hours a day in, shall we say, less than ideal conditions. They lived in company houses, were paid with company script, which, of course, could only be used at company stores. So at a time when the rest of the country was upwardly mobile, Appalachia was solidly still in the Dark Ages. There were protests and marches, and union organizers created the United Mine Workers of America and the Industrial Mine Workers of the World, and in turn, they organized more protests and walkout strikes. For years, the coal mining companies had hired mercenaries to thwart recruiting into these unions, and many a miner and his family had been tossed out of their company-owned home for not towing the company line. Things finally came to a head August 1st, 1921, at the courthouse in Welch, West Virginia, when friend and protector of the miners and their interests, Police Chief Sid Hatfield and his friend Ed Chambers were shot down in cold blood by coal miner thugs. This incident was the first shot in what could be considered the only class war in American history. By the middle of August, the miners had formed themselves into a rudimentary army. News reports from the time describe a great redneck army marching on Mingo as the miners took to putting red handkerchiefs around their neck to identify themselves to each other. 10,000 miners marched in protest of perilous work conditions, squalid housing, and low wages amongst other grievances. They set out from Marmet and were met in force at Blair Mountain, a 2,000-foot peak in southwestern Logan County, giving the battle its name. When Union and coal company forces met, it was a relatively evenly matched square-off, although the miners had many more men than the coal company forces. The coal company men had more powerful rifles, machine guns, and even a small air force dropping gas bombs and pipe bombs from the air. The whole affair was brought to a speedy conclusion when President Warren G. Harding heard West Virginia lawmakers' request for troops. On September 2nd, 1921, the coal miners were confronted by troops from the United States Army. Many of these miners were themselves ex-soldiers from World War I and were not there to fight their government. They were there to fight the injustices of the mining companies. At this point, the miners surrendered and gave up their weapons. Arrests were made, pardons were given, some were jailed as warnings to future troublemakers. Eventually, as the 20th century moved on, conditions did get better, and unions were instrumental in bringing about the slow but constant change in the living conditions of its members. One cannot tell what would have happened if the Redneck Army had not surrendered. But one thing can be said: an army marches on its stomach. Appalachian miners and mill workers were and are to this day a hardy folk, and one thing you can be sure of is that they marched with a stick-to-your-ribs filling meal in their bellies. An Appalachian staple that has gone back generations to start the day is sausage gravy with biscuits. Whether you are working in the sawmills in the forest, or digging coal out of the depths of a mountain, or getting ready to change the working world, sausage gravy and biscuits is the foundation to build your day on. Let's pour that foundation. Sausage gravy and biscuits today on Taste Buds Through Time. Hello, welcome to Taste Buds Through Time. I'm your host, Brian Parkhurst, and today, whether you are mining coal from the anthracite mines in West Virginia,
or you are working in the mills, or you're just out to get a good day going, I'm going to show you how to make one of the best breakfasts known to mankind. It's called sausage gravy with biscuits, and it's going to stick to your ribs. It's going to last you all day, and you're going to thank me. All right, let's do this. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start out with the biscuits part of the equation. And biscuits are pretty much simple. You got flour, you got butter, you got salt, sugar, baking powder, egg, and milk. I mean, really, do you get any simpler than that? So let's go ahead and start out. What you're going to do is you're going to take your flour. Now, for this particular recipe, I'm using 2 cups of flour. And take your salt, doing a half a teaspoon of salt, and 3 teaspoons of sugar. Now, yes, the sugar looks a little weird. It's not rancid or anything like that. I'm actually using a product called honey dust. And I find that it's just as sweet as honey, and it's a little bit better for you. But I mean, if you can't find honey dust, regular sugar, carbonate sugar, whatever, turbinado sugar, that's what it's called, turbinado. At any rate, so now we've got our sugar, we've got our salt. We'll take our baking powder, put that in there, mix it all up, and then you take a half a cup of butter, which is, just for measurement's sake, 1 stick. And then you're going to cut the butter into the flour. Now, what you're looking for is something that resembles a coarse cornmeal. So just keep working it and working it and working it, and eventually you'll get to, where you need to be. So I'll do this, and then when I'm done, I'll get back to you and I'll show you how to finish this off. All right. Now that we've got everything mixed together, we've got everything looking like a rough cornmeal. And to be honest, if you wanted to use your fingers to do this, it's probably better than actually using the cutter. But, in the modern world, we use what we have. So now that we've got all of this stuff mixed in together, what we're going to do is we're going to take milk, which is about 2/3 of a cup, 1 egg, mix that in. Get the eggshells out. I like crunchy food, but not exactly like that. So, go ahead and get that all mixed up. And then pour the egg and milk mixture into the flour and butter. Mix it until it comes together. And it's going to come together pretty darn quick. But once we get this together, then we're going to roll it out. We're going to turn it out onto a board, and we're going to knead it. And we're going to knead it about 20 times. Now, I'm not exactly sure why 20, not 19, not 21, but 19. I mean 20. Well, it's early, folks. All right, so now we're going to turn this out. Okay. Down there. We're going to lightly dust it with some flour here. And we're going to knead. And like I said, once we've got this kneaded about 20 times, then we're going to roll it out and cut it into rounds and get her in the oven. $19, $20. Now, make sure you get some flour in the rolling pin, and we'll roll this out. You want to roll it out to about a 1/2 inch thickness. You don't want your biscuits to be too thin, and then again, you also don't want your biscuits to be like blasting out and blowing up like popovers. So, that's about a 1/2 inch. And take a glass and start cutting your rounds out. There's 4. Now we're going to go ahead and put these on an ungreased cookie sheet. And bring it all back together. Roll her out. Don't let the dough stick to your pin. Like that. And as you can see, this makes about, depending on the size of your biscuit, it makes about 8. Generally, I make mine just a little bit on the larger side, so I usually end up with 7. And then I'll go ahead and put this dough on the side, bake it up along with them. I'll toss one of my chickens. They love it. All right, so let's go ahead and get this in the oven. All right, to the oven we go. All right, let's check the temperature. 1, 2, 9, 10. Okay, all right. I say we're probably at about 350, 400 degrees in there, which is what you want in your oven in the house. You can go ahead and put these in for 8 to 10 minutes. Like I said, it ain't hard, and it doesn't take long at all. So there's 8 to 10 minutes. Now we got them in, let's go work on the gravy. Now we've got our pan nice and hot. We'll go ahead and put our sausage in. Now, this is just loose sausage. I have a butcher that makes a fantastic apple sausage. So if you've got a butcher that you trust, that you like, go with whatever he's got. But it's up to you. I mean, if you just want to do regular breakfast sausage, that's fine. If you want to do something like what I have, that's good. They make a maple sausage. You can do hot sausage. But what you're looking for is not sausage links. You're just looking for loose sausage. So what we're going to do here is we're going to brown this sausage, breaking it up as we go. And then we'll go from there. Now this sausage already has pretty much all the spices and herbs in it that we need. I may end up adding a little bit of salt, a tad bit of pepper, but everything else is already there. So we'll go ahead and get this browned up, and I'll show you what the next step is in just a moment. Now that we've got the sausage nice and brown, and you'll notice I didn't give you any measurements on the sausage, and I'm not going to give you any measurements on the salt or the pepper or the milk that we're going to be adding later, because it's all really subjective to how you want your gravy. Do you want it thick? Do you want it thin? Do you want it salty? Do you want it a little bit more peppery? It's all up to you. So the amount of flour, which is what we're going to do right now, and the amount of milk will determine how thick your gravy is. Now, again, you're going to take your flour and you're going to sprinkle it over your sausage in the pan while it's still nice and sizzling. I like a thicker gravy, so I'm going to go with a little bit more flour. Now, when you cook this, you want to cook it for 3 to 4 minutes. You definitely want to get the rawness out of the flour. And a good rule of thumb is that when you're in the kitchen and you're doing this, and it kind of starts to sort of smell nutty, that's it. You're where you need to be. And you'll see as this meat absorbs the flour, you'll see how it kind of dulls out and gets kind of like a lackluster skin on it. That's what you're looking for, because that is the flour soaking into the meat, getting all of the fat, the grease, whatever you want to call it. And that is going to make the gravy nice and thick and delicious. You know, years ago, when I was a young cook and I didn't really know a heck of a lot, I would always drain the grease off of the meat. And I know some people out there just cringed when they heard me say that. But, you know, live and learn. You got to grow up sometime. And I finally realized that fat equals flavor. And if you're getting rid of the fat, you're getting rid of half of the flavor of the dish. So by all means, never, ever, ever drain your fat when you're cooking sausage gravy and biscuits. If you do, it's going to take you like 2 hours as opposed to 15 minutes. All right. Now, see how that's all amalgamated and kind of dulled out? We're getting the residue on the bottom there, which means that the flour is meshing in with the oil and then baking on the bottom. So here is where we put the milk in. Again, not giving you any specific measurement. It's whatever you want to make the thickness of your gravy. So we're going to start out with that much. Get her all mixed in. Let her go. This will thicken up as it sits over the fire or the burner on your stove. Because something tells me not a lot of you are going to go to the trouble and pains of coming out and building a fire pit just to make breakfast. So now you can already see how that milk and that flour is interacting and it's getting thicker. So we're just going to let this go. And I'm going to go check on the biscuits. Okay. Now you can see how it's really thickened up. And that is definitely what I personally am looking for. And I think we're just going to add just a tad bit more milk just to make it go a little bit further because I am feeding 6 people this morning, so I'm going to need a little bit. Another thing I want you to take note of is the proportion of sausage to gravy. Now, remember, it's called sausage, gravy, and biscuits. So what comes first in the title should be the most plentiful ingredient. One thing I can't stand is going to a restaurant and getting some SGB, and they bring out this biscuit with a little bit of sausage in the gravy and a whole ton of pepper, and all you can taste is the pepper and the milk because there's hardly any sausage. Now, that's not how we roll here. We go ahead and we make it so that it is stick to your ribs, thick, wonderful, and umptious. And believe it or not, folks, that's pretty much where we want to be. Now, I'm going to take a little taste here, see where we're at, see if it needs any seasoning. I guess it would help if I did it on the right side. Salt's good. Don't need any salt. However, please a little pepper. And take a quick taste, and I think that's going to do it. Perfect. Perfect. All right, so just waiting on the biscuits coming out of the oven. I'll see you all at the table, put it all together, see how it tastes. All right, let's see what we got going on. I think they're done. Yeah, I think those are beautiful. Only one thing to do. Let's go put them together. So here you have it. Good old-fashioned sausage gravy and biscuits made from scratch, the way Grandma did it, the way everybody should do it. Let's go ahead and get a bite and see what we got here. Now, I really don't need to take a bite because I know what this tastes like because I've been eating it for years, but just for your benefit, I'm going to go ahead and fill my mouth in front of you. Oh my God, yeah. Mm-hmm. This is awesome. And everybody in my family loves this. Everybody that I make this for absolutely loves it. So I will go ahead and make sure that there is a complete and detailed recipe in the description below. It's going to give you all the measurements if you just want to start out, and then you can take it from there and do it on your own. I'll do it for the gravy, and I'll do it for the biscuits, and I'll make sure that it comes out perfect for you. Just follow the instructions. Hey folks, listen, whether you are out to change the world or you're just looking to get the day started and have something to get you through, this is it. Go ahead and make this. Do it Sunday morning. It's a Sunday morning breakfast. Do it. Let me know what you think. And thanks for stopping by the homestead. I'll see you all next time.